Welcome to Progressive Retail. I'm your host, Cory Mosley. On today's show, we're going to discuss some key aspects of employee retention, plus my regular segments, Don't Be Ridiculous, Here's a Thought, and The Way I See It. Let's get started. One of my most requested keynote topics this year has revolved around employee culture and retention strategies, as many retailers continue to struggle with competitive landscapes and millennial employment. The reliance on creative pay plans that paint the picture of big upsides and the basics of simple healthcare are no longer drivers to make people want to come work for your dealership and, more importantly, stay with your dealership. Taking a bit of reverse engineering approach to this, let's talk for a moment about why many employees leave in the first place. Number one, there's no growth plan. Number two, there's no training plan. Number three, and hold on, before I jump to number three, it makes me think of a story. I had the opportunity to do some work for a corporate manufacturer. I was doing work on behalf of the manufacturer that sent me into the store to work with the team. After completing some training, the owner came up to me and said, "I want you to know you're the first person in 11 years that has ever done any training in my store." And I'm thinking to myself, no wonder the store is in trouble. So moving on, number three, work hours. That's the 800-pound gorilla. We've talked about it before. I'll talk about it again. It's something we have to certainly rethink. Number four, there's no real challenge to the job. The job may be challenging in certain aspects, but for a lot of people, when there's no upward mobility, that affects challenge. The monotony of the job creates challenges. Number five, not given an input opportunity. Number six, the dealership's values and mission are unclear. And finally, number seven, dealership business practices are questionable. If any of these sound familiar to you, then that means there's a big opportunity to address these areas, to begin strengthening your team. When I came into the business, the management style of many was overwhelmingly driven by the premise that no news was good news. If your manager wasn't communicating with you, that meant everything was fine. If you were able to steer clear of the well-known come to Jesus meetings, you were doing just fine. Now, I've always believed that people worked for two things: compensation, of course, and recognition. And any sustainable plan for employee retention must have both of those elements. Increased employee engagement allows you to follow and find the barriers that are breaking down your ability to move forward. It allows you to find new ideas. These ideas ultimately lead to better processes, assuming as a decision maker, you are open to change. All employees of your dealership base go into one of three buckets. They are, number one, either actively engaged, number two, they are simply not engaged, or three, the most damaging of them all, they are actively disengaged inside your organization. The question I have for you is, do you know which bucket each of your employees fall into? See, the idea of the exit interview isn't new, but how about the stay interview? Meaning taking the time in an organized fashion to determine why your employees are there and what you could be doing better inside the organization. Studies have shown that employees believe coaching is important to their development as an employee, but those same survey respondents state overwhelmingly that their managers are ineffective at coaching. Coaching, like many things, is a skill that is learned and developed. And while I know plenty of managers who are strong at desking, strong at closing, strong on the TO, I think there is a lot of opportunity for development as a coach. Could we all agree that better quality hires are easier to lead? So here's something I want to propose to you today. How about replacing the 90-day probation period with a 90-day engagement strategy? See, we basically hire people and remind them on day one that they are on a trial run and can be terminated for any reason within the first 90 days. So we start with a fear plan instead of a welcome to the family plan. How many employees right now wouldn't recognize the owner if they were standing in front of them? Here are a few thoughts of mine on new hire engagement. Number one, formalize everything that will happen in a welcome letter. Welcome them to the organization. Number two, introduce them throughout the dealership. Number three, define the training agenda. What's going to happen and when. Number four, personal meeting with the owner and or executive team, regardless of the position they've been hired. The porter should have the opportunity to meet with the owner. And number five, a lunch and learn with the owner. You got to eat lunch, so why not take the opportunity to strengthen the relationship with an employee? Now, Let's move for just a moment to the topic of millennials. We recently conducted a university study asking soon-to-be graduates why they would or would not consider a career in the auto industry. Here's what they told us. 39% of the respondents said work hours were the issue. 27% said inconsistent income. 19% cited social stigma. 15% said limited advancement. So here's my question. What's the game plan? Because something has to change if we want our best and brightest going into the auto industry instead of elsewhere. What's your current process? Now, to get the download of the millennial study, you can visit mosleyautomotive.com/4reasons. Now it's time for
Don't Be Ridiculous,
where the parties involved shall remain nameless, but the story must be shared. So here's the scenario. Car is pulled up, clean, and ready for delivery. The salesperson goes out to do a walk around before the customer arrives. He notices a big scratch on the rear of the trunk. He goes in to tell his manager, who instructs him to pop the trunk when they arrive and walk around the customer's car without bringing attention to the scratch. Move the customer back inside and then close the trunk lid. If the customer discovers the scratch, yell, "Oh my goodness," and come get him. Now, before I hit the button, I'm going to just shake my head. And now I simply have to say,
don't be ridiculous.
Now, if you have a Don't Be Ridiculous story to share, please email us at cbtshow@corymosley.com. If we use your story on the show, we will send you your very own Don't Be Ridiculous t-shirt. Now, here's a thought. This is such an easy one here because it would seem that it's not even worth the hassle to go through this. At some point, the customer would discover the issue and expect the dealership to take action. Why not be, proactive instead of reactive? I believe the saying goes, doing the right thing is always the right thing. Finally, finding talent, developing talent, and keeping talent is the bedrock of any business's core strategy. You always hear people, process, products. No successful company strategy ever leaves out the people part. But to do better, we have to commit to educate ourselves on being better. Better coaches, better leaders, and having the valuable insights and feedback from our team members, even when that feedback could be harsh. I think they call it tough love. As the saying goes, we could do better if we knew better. And that simply is the way I see it. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to go to corymosley.com/CBT show to submit show ideas, give feedback, or even be a guest on a future show. This has been Progressive Retail, exclusively on the CBT Automotive News Network. I'm Cory Mosley, and I'll see you next week.